What's up YouTube, Capital G here. I want to talk about Jonny Nagel's top 32 deck from YCS Dallas. It's a Malefic skill drain Darkworld deck. He obviously did very well with the deck, and it's again one of the most interesting decks to come out of the recent YCSs. Now, this deck has a lot of unconvention to it, and I think that we're starting to slowly but surely see, based on just the results that I'm seeing at YCSs, that convention is starting to lose ground to innovation. When you look at some of the innovative decks like Alex Reed's Lightsworn Chaos, Dragon deck, or the Chaos deck that won the YCS in France, or TGs with no hand traps winning YCS Atlanta, or Dark World winning Long Beach, you're starting to see that, granted 6 Rabbit decks seem to top every, top 16 of YCS, but these rogue decks are just not losing power. I mean, these things seem to be getting stronger and stronger, and this is just another example of that. Now, obviously, he has a ton of tech in here, and you guys might doubt some of it, but, there is one ultimate remedy to doubt, and that is proof. And the proof is in the pudding, guys. Results don't lie. First, let's start off with the deck list. I'll try and do this quickly as possible. 3 copies of the key Dark World cards that are, that would be Brow, Snow, and Grapha. He has 2 copies of Beige, 1 copy of Silver, 1 copy of each Malefic, that would be Cyber and Stardust Dragon, 1 copy of Tour Guide from the Underworld, 3 copies of Dark World Dealings, 3 copies of Drag Down into the Grave, 2 copies of Gates of the Dark World, 1 copy of Allure, 1 Monster Born, 1 Foolish Burial, 1 Heavy Storm, 1 Cheerful Coffin, and 1 Card Destruction. 3 copies of Reckless Greed. He's got 2 copies of Skill Drain, 1 copy of Solemn Judgment, 1 copy of Dex Devastation Virus, 1 copy of Dark Deal, 1 copy of Return from the Different Dimension, 1 Call to Haunted, and 2 copies of Mind Crush. Now, some interesting things about this deck. First thing that I noticed is he has both Malefic cards in here. Why is that important? Because they seem to serve different purposes, but they both actually work well in the deck, especially because he runs 2 copies of Skill Drain to support the cards even more. Cyber End is basically just, it's one of those game-stealing cards like that I talked about with Judgment Dragon and Alexander Reed's deck. It's like one of those cards where if you get into a top decking war, or if your opponent doesn't have defenses and they have bluffs, you throw it on the field, you attack, and good things happen when you're aggressive sometimes. And it's a card that can win you a game maybe that you don't have advantage of, or that you don't have advantage in. And maybe a game that you probably shouldn't win. Like if the game extends 3 more turns, you lose, but the game didn't extend 3 more turns, so you won. Like you drop it with Skill Drain out, you drop it with Gate out, it's a 4,000 beater. Chances are your opponent's not going to be able to attack over it. And if they take a direct attack from it, I mean, they're halfway to losing. Another prime example of something like that would be Return from the Different Dimension. Now, granted, he only runs 2 gates, but he's going to have access to gate at pretty much all states of the game. I mean, outside of like turn 1. Basically, once he gets past turn 2, he should have gate from turn 2 until the time that the game ends. So, he's going to be removing things from gate. He can easily remove big things like Silver or Beige, which, Beige jumps to like 1900 when you have Gate on the field, so Beige actually gets pretty big. He has the Lord Darkness. There are always things like Bottomless Trap Hole and Deep Prison, which, I mean, this is kind of nice. It answers that. And again, this is also a card that it fits really well into the side decks. So, most of the cards that people are going to side deck against you are going to be D-Fissure, Macrocosmos, DD Crow, So they're things that actually fuel this card. So it's a card that's easily sided in, so it's like, why not, see if I can main deck it, steal some games away from my opponent. 1 copy of a card that I really like in this deck is Dark Deal. Dark Deal is kind of like a replacement for Starlight Road in a sense that it stops the key cards that you want to stop from Starlight Road. It doesn't stop Mirror Force and Torrential, but it stops the Heavy Storm, it stops Dark Hole, and you know what? This is a good card against rogue matchups. When you play something like Hero Beat, you're not going to basically resolve Starlight Road ever unless it's off Torrential or Mirror Force. Chances of them heavying you and you having a bunch of cards isn't very likely. But, this can go up against something like Gemini Spark, where guess what? They just lost their Neos because it's a cost, and now you might have the chance of summoning like a Silva or a Brow, drawing a bunch of cards, or you can use it against, more importantly, something like Miracle Fusion. So this card is definitely, it can be an ace card against like the Rogue, and the Rogue seems to be very, very powerful and very, very prominent in this format of ours. Skill Drain is, yet again, it's another card where I look at this and I think You know, DDS didn't run it he only ran one copy at Long Beach, and that's fair enough. That worked fine for him. But this guy only has one copy of Tour Guide. So Tour Guide obviously isn't something that he's going to be summoning a lot. I mean, the basic concept with Tour Guide is it either gets Brow, which bounces for Grapha, or you're just going to be using it for, you know, your XC plays. But with 2 copies of Skill Drain, he can kind of not only ensure that these guys are always live, and I mean, this is just Rabbit's worst nightmare, seeing either one of these cards on the field, because you know, they don't really have a lot of good options to it, especially this 4,000 motherfucker right here, Cyber End. But in addition, I mean, Insectors can be a very, very bad matchup for this deck unless you hit like Deck Virus very early. So again, this is a card where you look at this against Insectors and it's like, okay, we can just win. Even against Heroes, as odd as that sounds, like the only way Heroes can really beat this deck is if they get Shining to 3,200 and they're able to get over Grapha. You activate Skill Drain, you make Shining go down to 26, and Grapha just says no bitch and just starts slapping up heroes, and you basically win. So I think that this is a pretty interesting deck. A lot of key card choices that were probably successful. You know, things like Call of the Haunted, I didn't even talk about. Call of the Haunted can be very good in this deck because when you combine it with the Cyber cards, it can not only give you more targets for something like Deck Devastation Virus, where you can extend that, making your Mind Crushers more live, making your Mind Crushers more prominent and more powerful. But again, it can just steal games for your opponent. You know, maybe you attack with like a Grapha, they think that that's it, and then bam, you activate Call of the Haunted, get another Grapha on the field, and you know, whoop-de-doo, you just went and put down 6,000 in one turn. Same thing can be said with either of the Cyber cards. So yeah, this is an interesting deck, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you would, please click an ad and let me know what you think. And I know that there isn't a Cyber End in the extra deck. I just forgot to put it in there, so nobody bitch about that. Thanks for watching.